Hello there, beautiful. How are you doing today? My name is Joesephyr, and in today's Should You Pull video for Dissidia Opera Omnia, we're going to be talking about Dimensions End Transcendence Tier 10. Still a mouthful to say every time I try and get it out. And we're going to be looking at this particularly challenging fight, probably the first of its kind in the FR era, as well as the banners that turn up along with it, which will include Sherlotta, her brand new FR and brand new BT, the return of ExDeath, and a couple of extra characters along the sidelines as well. So if you'd like to know more about all of those characters and the event itself, then of course, as always, stay tuned and keep on watching. Before we get started, of course, don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box below, and obviously come and find me on Twitch if you'd like to see me going through all of the events for Dissidia Opera Omnia and loads of other stuff as well, including recently I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV, Final Fantasy IX, Final Fantasy V, Genshin Impact, Monster Hunter Rise, all sorts of different things. If you'd like to come and chat to me, then by all means come and find me over on Twitch. Over on Patreon, I do always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a video. Today that person is going to be Saeed Iskali, who is one of my Ultima patrons, and a massive thank you goes out to you for your support. And you have a title card for Lulu, and this one is hand drawn by me, so a massive thank you goes out to all of my patrons. And if you'd like a title card drawn up for you just like the one that Saeed has, then perhaps you'd like to consider supporting the channel, all in the description box down below. Now that we've done the first goal for my San Diego donation drive, I am now working towards the next one, which will be to do more painting giveaways. You may remember that I have done them in the past with things like Warrior of Light, Alexander, and I'll be doing more of them as we approach these goals. So a massive thank you to anyone who has considered supporting already, and for those of you who might consider supporting in the future. And lastly, of course, don't forget to check out all of the other content creators and resources out there for Dissidia, because they all deserve your love too. So with the banners that are coming along with Dimensions End Transcendence 10, we actually have two banners to be looking at today. The first of which is going to contain Sherlotta, her brand new kit, including her FR and her BT, and she's being accompanied by Lena and Aphmau. Now Lena only gets her force enhancements here, but Aphmau does get a rework. And then the second banner is going to feature ExDeath, as well as Irvin, and then Ida, who is getting a rework as well. So first let's talk about Ida and Aphmau, as they're going to be getting their reworks here too. So first things first, big shout outs to Mediu for their translations over on Reddit. Ida is getting a pretty simple update, where she's just getting a large number of HP dumps added to her kit. For those of you who've used her previously, she's mostly used for her poison effects, including an HP poison. Now sadly, a trend that you'll see across HP poison characters in this game is that HP poison is something that doesn't actually stack with force time damage bonuses, so therefore it's not that great. Ida, however, comes away with it pretty well, because she has her Snap Punch Plus, which will have 6 HP dumps in it. It's not quite up there with your Sephiroth Octoslashes and your Kane Gungnir's, but it's pretty good. You know, Touch of Death has 3 HP dumps in it and now has 100% AoE damage as well. It's fine. Like, you know, 6-sided Star still deals a lot of damage. Like, that hasn't been updated in terms of HP dumps because it was a late comer to sort of the LD era, so therefore it already has a lot. And she basically gets to have her buff from the start of it, like from the start of the quest straight away. The reason that people use Ida is Ida Wrath, which is the combination of Ida and Sephiroth, and using Ida being able to break a unit and then get a free turn after it, and then alternate between her HP plus and her Brave plus in order to be able to just have infinite turns, essentially, which can be useful. People used it fairly recently in like the first couple Shinryus and stuff. It's cute, but I wouldn't go pulling for Ida specifically for that, considering that realistically you're not going to be, you'd be sitting there for hours at this point. Her C90 does upgrade her Tornado Kick to have a much larger number of HP dumps as well, so it's 5 HP dumps when using Tornado Kick Plus, and also has 50% splash damage. Ultimately, Ida's alright. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way for her, because like one of her main gimmicks doesn't really work, and the other one just takes too long to realistically be useful at this point when we're looking at enemies with 100 million HP plus. Moving over to the Sherlotta banner ever so slightly, we're going to have a look at Aphmau now. Now, Aphmau's rework I actually do really like. Aphmau's actually a character I've really enjoyed in this game for a really long time, and I find that it's partially because she doesn't actually need to rely on herself in order to be really good. She is there to support a single other character. Those of you who remember like Sid Reigns and Aphmau combinations will like this. So basically whenever she uses her LD, every time she acts, a selected party member will then act straight after her. So there's lots of cute little combinations that you can do with that. So in terms of the rework itself, it's very, very kind of plain Jane at this point. Like, we just get a load of HP dumps added to Shield Subverter and 6th Element, one extra one added to Shield Subverter, having 4 HP dumps on it instead of just the 1, and then Victory Smite has 5 HP dumps in it, and also gives her one of the buffs, not the one that transfers her turns over to other characters, so you're still going to want to use her Victory Smite quite early on in the fight. And then her C90 is actually pretty nice as well, so she gets a 6 HP dumping EX attack, which is pretty good considering how fast it charges. And then the HP++ for both Neijing and Ouyang will have a double HP dump on it, and then she also gets extra Brave and HP damage added to her kit, added to her buffs as well. So she's a solid buffing unit, but the primary reason that you'll be using her is for that LD Victory Smite and being able to give her turns to other characters. Now, as somebody who has blued and fully kitted out Fujin, I actually figured that Aphmau would be quite a good pairing for her, because then you're making sure that Fujin is getting those turns while still like buffing it slightly using Aphmau, and then giving her buffs through Aphmau's own buffs as well, whilst you have an off-turn damage dealer along the lines of Kain or Freya, or Cisne even, doing lots of damage and still being able to benefit from Fujin FR. Am I trying to sort of like support the idea that everyone should go pulling for Fujin FR because of Aphmau? No, but I have a maxed out Fujin and I'm going to find ways to use it. But I generally think that Aphmau is a really cool character. I've always really enjoyed her. There's, you know, she's a bit weak on the, like, on, you know, just in terms of potencies and stuff, and that hasn't changed. But as long as you're, like, kitting everybody out with good potencies and stuff, she can actually be a very fun team player to have. So now let's take a look at ExDeath. And ExDeath makes me sad. You guys know how much I love FF5. You know how much I love ExDeath as a character and all of that stuff. ExDeath gets his rework here, and he gets his BT Plus and his C90. So we'll talk about the good things first. So his EX is still really good, still providing the Power of Nothingness debuff to make it so that enemies don't deal damage during that next turn, and that's something that can be recharged relatively quickly. And now with his rework, he gets plus usages across the board on all of his stats. He then gets multiple HP dumps, 3 HP dumps on both of his skills, which is kind of nice. And then you'll get the Dissipating Vortex debuff that comes from his LD, which is one of his HP poisons, added to the fight as soon as you enter play. So it's an ETB effect, so when you come in, it's automatically applied, so you don't have to use the LD straight away. But when you do use it, it's got 4 HP dumps in it. It's not the most number of HP dumps, but we can kind of try and forgive it a little bit because of the way his bravery damage is calculated, because he doesn't actually do bravery damage. He reduces enemy bravery to 0 and then gains bravery equal to what he drained. It's calculated a little differently, so you can use this in certain fights, and he doesn't consume bravery during those attacks as well, apart from the last HP dump, so you're always going to be hitting bravery cap for those attacks. And like I said, his C90, it's got a recast gauge up. That's really nice. We like that. And you've got triple HP dumps on it. This is not great. Like, triple HP dump isn't fantastic. The trouble with ExDeath is that he is relying on a mechanic that doesn't really work during Shinryu era, which are his HP poisons, because he has 3 of them. One from his Curse, one from his Dissipating Vortex from his LD, and another through his BT effect. So there's things that are useful from this. Now, the first 2 only come off after enemy turns, but his BT effect triggers after every turn, so that is something to bear in mind. But because HP poison damage doesn't really scale with FR bonus damage, like I said with Ida earlier, ExDeath suffers from this really badly. Honestly, I don't know why HP poison doesn't scale with FR time, because you're still going to be running the turns down regardless. It's something that really winds me up, because somebody who loves Aphmau and ExDeath, it really winds me up that this mechanic just doesn't work in this era. But you're still going to be hitting for, like, I don't know, 250,000 damage, like, every turn with his BT effect, at least if you've supported him correctly and upped his attack as high as it'll go. And it lasts longer, and now you get 100% attack up, 30% HP damage up, and 30% damage for caps for bravery and HP. But realistically, His curses are just off-turn damage. That's the way that one has to look at them. They are off-turn damage. And why would you take somebody like ExDeath, who can deal some damage with his BT effect active, when you could be taking Kain, or Cissnei, or Freya, or somebody else that does off-turn damage that will actually scale with stuff. Kain and Freya don't even lose their bravery when they're doing theirs, so does kind of make you wonder what's in it for ExDeath, really. It's just a really unfortunate situation for him. So now let's take a look at the star of today's show, which is going to be Sherlotta. Now, Sherlotta's rework is actually very simplistic, because it wasn't that long ago that we got her LD, which is the attack that allows you to store large amounts of bravery, like split between all of the brave batteries that you've done, added onto her staff effect, which you can then use in her HP plus to then deal very large amounts of singular damage that far outweighs the damage limit. So she actually just gets extra uses of Light of the Crystal here, which is much better than you think it is, and Crystal Generation gets 2 additional HP dumps in it and making to 5, which is pretty damn good actually for a support character like her. So she has her HP regen, she has her buff, she has all of that, she is a Brave Battery Queen. But the thing that's most important about Sherlotta to bear in mind here is that her skill 1 is instant turn, as is her EX. She obviously has her AA. She has a lot of instant turn battery-based abilities that don't deal damage. And that is good for what? Charging that force gauge. It's very, very useful for doing that. And of course, now that she has an outlet for that force gauge in her own kit and a BT effect with some pretty nice abilities added on top of it, she makes for the charge queen. She is just really good at charging the FR gauge so that you could get that to maximum. Even if you don't want to use her FR weapon, you can use somebody else's and just benefit from her burst effect. Honestly, I'd argue her burst effect is more valuable than her FR, but her FR is still pretty darn good as well. So the FR weapon, she partners up with Kate Sith here, and then she sets everyone's bravery to 0, and then does a big old HP attack 3 times like most FR attacks. And the triggers for her force time are when a character uses a changed bravery or HP command, and that includes plus variants as well, and then when she recovers bravery to other party members. It's actually a very simple and very easy mechanic to use if you're using the right characters for it, characters that benefit from heavy HP like plus changes and stuff like that. Obviously, Sherlotta herself is a really good example of this. She uses her relic staff attack and she uses her throw staff, sling staff, different variants of that, and that's going to look really good. And yeah, you can charge the gauge very efficiently with her if you pair her up with other characters that use those kinds of attacks. So with her BT effect, her burst, basically, if you're going to be using her burst phase, what you want to be using is her LD to store uses of her relic staff attack so that she could just throw the staff, deal loads of damage based on what's stored in her relic staff, and then just keep doing it during her burst phase because it's going to fulfill all of the conditions of her FR if you're wanting to use her own one. So that's how you're going to get the most damage out of her burst phase. But the effects themselves are 50% Brave Gains, HP overflow, Brave Overflow, HP damage up, 20% to both of your caps. When ally or enemy moves, you get a Brave Battery equal to 150% of her attack at the start of every turn, so that's a massive bravery gen. Oh, and increases bravery based on 10% of max bravery for every bravery hit. So this is a burst effect version of Kate Sith / Alize's stuff, where you're just going to be gaining bravery on everything. And this is a lovely effect to have. Now, do I think that she's absolutely mandatory, must pull, everyone has to have her? I'd say she's pretty close. Like, yeah, we've got Luna Freya coming up, but she is very good. If you want a character that can charge the FR gauge really quickly, is self-sufficient damage-wise, has some really nice buffs and all of that, she's a lovely all-around support kit that can just do a lot of nice things. I can't say anything bad about her, really, apart from the fact that her damage is reliant on her HP plus and her skill 2. But that's not even that bad. I'd say Sherlotta was a fantastic character. Right, now that we've gotten the characters out of the way, let's take a look at Dimensions End Transcendence Tier 10. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys, this one is kinda nasty. So this is the Lunatic Disaster Machine. Now, obviously, you have the left and right gates here, which are Lufenia missions. They're quite simple in this day and age. The left gate requires a yellow crystal character and for bravery batterying, which, you know, Sherlotta could do, but so could a lot of characters these days. Like, Rude is really good as an option for it as well if you just have him lying around, or Desh or something like that. There's loads of options around for that. The right crystal, or the right gate, asks for a blue crystal character and for you to inflict 2 or more debuffs in one turn. Tidus is pretty perfect for this, but the reason I mention Tidus here is because he is also perfect for this final fight here, the Shinryu fight. So let me explain the mechanics of the Lunatic Disaster Machine first, because they're not nice. So, do you remember the Flower Dragons from Dimensions End Tier 6? You're going to have something similar here. So, between 160% HP, now luckily the mechanics here are threshold based, so you're going to have to bear that in mind as well, so that at least they don't last for the whole fight, but between 159% HP, while he doesn't have debuffs, or has a certain number of debuffs or less, he has varying effects. So if he has 1 or less debuffs, you're just not dealing damage to him, so you're going to need to bring some debuffs with you. If he has 4 or less, he does more damage to you. If he has 6 or less, then whenever any character takes a turn, he takes one straight afterwards, and while he has 7 or less, he just has extra stats. So realistically, you're going to want to get debuffs on him very, very quickly. So pull out your Caiuses, your cool abilities like that will do really, really large numbers of debuffs. Faris, Amiditelian, all of that goes. Doesn't matter what the debuffs are, almost just chuck them on there, because at least then he's not having these mechanics go off, and then at least you'll be able to set up to get ready for your FR phase. So between 59 and 39%, so 60 and 40%, you have summoned adds here as well, which are sweepers. Now, do you remember DET 5, I believe it was, that had the zombies that if you didn't deal at least half of their HP, they would insta-kill you if you got past a certain threshold? Yeah, you're going to be dealing with that again here as well. So between, like, when you hit the 59% threshold and the 39% threshold, if the sweepers that are with him are not under 50% HP, they will insta-kill one of your characters, which is obviously a run ender. You're not going to want that to happen. But the other thing to bear in mind is they have about 5 million HP each, and as soon as they are killed, they're resurrected with full HP again straight away. So you're going to have to manage your damage so that you're not going too far with that damage, so that they then just get resurrected and kill you anyway. However, if you do the 59 to 39% phase during a burst or a summon, then you can kill the sweepers after the threshold has been procced to stop them from then going off again. If you can get through both of those phases between, during those parts, then you're probably good to go for that particular phase. Honestly, a lot of people just go use Tidus and just take him from like 70-60% to nothing, because that can be done with Tidus. You're just going to have to be careful with it. I will also mention here as well that the boss is immune to paralysis debuff, so Counternaut, the only way you're going to be able to work Counternaut in here is if you take a Waka LD call and you get lucky with a Confusion debuff. That's the only way you're going to be able to bring Counternaut to this and get the most out of him. After 40%, never mind, I haven't even discussed the force time mechanics yet. There's no more major mechanics outside of the force time after 40%, except for the fact that he has an HP regen. A large one of 1.1 million HP every player turn. So and there's nothing you can do to stop it. You just have to damage race this at that point. So get your FR gauges going. If you've got off-turn damage dealers that are going to do in the work, that'll help you mitigate those gains until you can get to an FR point and then finish the job. That's going to be the way to do that. He has 110 million HP, so if you use the right combination of characters, whether it be Tidus, Sherlotta, of course, if you want to take Machina, that will also work as well. So the other thing we need to bear in mind is the force time. Now, I haven't even touched on that yet. It's very simple, the force time here. So basically, all that happens when you hit 20% and 40% is that his defenses go up, his brave damage resistance goes up, and his brave damage dealt goes up. When you get to 100%, he does a automatic brave gains and then sets your bravery to 0 and then an AoE HP attack, which you can dodge if you want to, but the force time itself makes it so that he takes no bravery damage, like, from attacks, which is obviously encouraging you to try to use brave gains like Sherlotta or something like that. Kayn and Freya obviously going to be really good here because they can do HP damage without actually having to deal bravery damage, and you also get an HP poison at the, during every turn as well until they've had their 5 turns of force time. This is an unpleasant fight. This is not particularly nice. There are clears out there that use neither Tidus nor Sherlotta. Tidus is primarily used in order to just blitz the enemy HP from 70% to nothing, or as close to 60% to nothing as you can get, and that can absolutely be done if using Kayn, Cissnei, etc., all the generic stuff if you want to do it that way. Sherlotta, you might want to consider taking like a tank with you, like Galoof or Auron. Auron's a good shout here because he can inflict debuffs. Tidus is also perfect here because he inflicts 3 debuffs just on entry, and then you just have to use somebody like Caius to then put another 4 on there, like for a call ability or whatever, so that you've then not got to worry about the turn warping mechanics, and then you just have to worry about managing the sweeper's HP during that middle bit, and then just burning this thing down. It's a damage race. That is literally what this fight is. It's a damage race. Just in the middle, you have to watch yourself a little bit. It's not a nice fight, but as long as you've got the right teams for it, then it's a good one to go. So now let's go into Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to let your voice be heard and let everyone else know whether you'd pull on these banners and why that may or may not be the case. So let's start with ExDeath's banner. Now, of course, a big thank you goes out to all of my patrons for submitting their comments and their votes, of course. We now have the polls working again, thank goodness. And going into ExDeath's banner, I'm sure nobody here is going to be surprised to say that no one is going to be pulling on gems on this banner, or even with 100 or more tickets. 10% of people are saying they will use less than 100 tickets, 15% of people have said no because they don't want it, and 75% of people have said no because they've got everything but the FR and they'd rather use the other banner. I'm in the latter category. I have ExDeath. I love ExDeath. I'm not going to be greening him because he's just not a character I want to spend those resources on. I do understand that a lot of people do think, no, your favourites should always come first, but I firmly of the opinion that in a game that has limited resources, I would rather see my resources go further than use them on characters that I just wouldn't use. It just doesn't make sense for me to do that. Now then, with Sherlotta's banner, this is much, much different as a story. 44% of people said they're using gems here, 36% of people said they're using 100 or more tickets, 12% of people said they're using less than 100 tickets, and 8% of people said no thank you at all. I will be using 100 or more tickets because I have a large number of tickets currently, and I do actually have a large interest in the other banners in Sherlotta's batch, which are Reno and Cloud of Darkness, so I would like to get those FRs as well, and hopefully I can acquire her BT along the way. Although I have to say, the temptation to spend gems here is very palpable because, goddammit, I want that BT, and I really don't want to have to spend tokens on it because it wasn't that long ago that I spent some, so here's hoping, fingers crossed, that I don't have to. And anyway, let's go into some of the comments. Ridley Kemp says this is great timing for Sherlotta. Not only is she a great character and a great character for the Force era, but other than Luna Freya, this is a pretty barren month for me. I just don't really like Reno. The second half of September is going to be expensive, but I can afford to spend some gems now to get one of my favourites. She is a great character. I think that people... I've probably perpetuated this a bit myself, thinking that Luna Freya is an absolute 100%, if you can't get her, you cannot play the game. That is not true. She is an extraordinarily powerful character, but there are a lot of extraordinarily powerful characters out there, and I do firmly believe that Sherlotta is up there with a lot of them, because she's just that good at charging the FR gauge and then going, oh, I'm just going to sit back here with a BT effect that is perfect for the majority of characters by having the Kate Sith-esque effect, the brave regens at the start of every turn. She just pairs up with a lot of characters really, really well. And then if you're kind of done with her, then at that point you can start looking at other characters. She's a great character to switch out for a selfie friend so that you can quickly do that and then bring her back in to charge the FR gauge up again. I just really like Sherlotta in this game. I think she's very good. Sir Alex says, I'm ticketing Sherlotta FR for collection purposes, but I don't plan on maxing it. However, I'm tokening and greening the BT on day one because I don't want to get crazy over T10. In general, she enables bypassing things such as elemental reductions by simply providing such a huge amount of gains that brave damage is unnecessary, so I'm sure she'll be very useful in the future. I love ExDeath, but the HP poison not scaling with FR is just too bad to consider investing in him. I will say that I agree with that. I think the BT is actually more important for Sherlotta than her FR. I'm ticketing Sherlotta's FR because I actively want it, but obviously if you're going exclusively for the BT, then maybe Gems is the right option just because it will give you more chance to do it. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about doing that now. No, I have lots of tickets, I really should use them on something, but because I didn't on Fujin. So I do think that the BT is the primary goal here, if obviously you already have the LD and everything else. Otherwise, if you're looking for a kit and you want everything including the LD, then you should definitely be using Gems here. Otherwise, you might just want to leave it entirely. And then finally, Luca Yasha says, I'll be going in with around 100 tickets for Sherlotta. While she's nowhere near backbreaking, she's a solid all-round character. Her FR is a bit more generic, but that isn't a bad thing, as it means she can be fitted into teams more easily as a staple FR unit. As for ExDeath, while I love my villains, I luckily have everything on this banner, but even if I didn't, I would avoid it like the plague. HP poison is cute, but when looking at Shinryu, it's simply not enough. Until he gets an FR that can make HP poison increase, the percentage he is sadly unfit for Shinryu at the moment. I actually disagree with both of these statements. I'd say that I wouldn't say she was backbreaking, but I'd say she was better than solid. I'd say she was definitely up there in like the higher echelons of characters that people will just use over the course of time. She's not mandatory by any means, I get that, but I do think that her BT at the very least is extremely powerful in combination with the rest of her stuff. Her FR, sure, that's a nice addition, and I would like to have it so that I could use it. I like to have characters that have an FR in their back pocket. Ursula's a great example of this, just as like, oh, well, I want to take these damage dealers that don't have an FR of their own. Well, now I can just take this one, and this one just kind of works, and I just really enjoy that. I will say this about ExDeath. HP poison, if I've learnt anything from playing a lot of Aphmau, is not the entire basis of a character. There are other benefits to taking ExDeath. The way in which he reduces bravery and gains it as opposed to dealing bravery damage is something interesting. His HP damage like dumps could be higher, I'll give you that, they could. And obviously his EX is very strong still. He does provide some pretty nice debuffs for along the right. I would not say that he is unfit for Shinryu. He is certainly playable in Shinryu fights. Obviously, he doesn't have an FR, so you would be taking someone else's anyway. So therefore, if you wanted to play ExDeath, you absolutely could. However, the thing I would say when it comes to him is you do have to spend resources like Ultima Tomes and Ingots in order to get that green BT for ExDeath. And are you going to be spending that on ExDeath when you could be spending it on someone like Sherlotta or Lunafreya instead? And I think the majority of players will know the answer to that, and those that do clearly love ExDeath more than me. So now, of course, we have the big question. Should you be pulling for Sherlotta, Aphmau, ExDeath, or Ida? Ida is quite simple. Like, if you like her, sure. Like, if you've already got her, you might use her because she's got increased HP dumps. But if you didn't like her before, you're probably not going to like her now. And if you liked her before, you're probably going to like her now. And if you like the Ida strategy, well, that's entirely up to you. But Aphmau, I will say, I think is a really nice pickup. If you don't already have Aphmau's LD, she's a great character to play around with and play and have some real fun with team compositions and stuff, because of the ability to give another character more frequent turns, and also by making it that way, giving your third character not have more frequent turns. It means that there's a lot of room to play if you want a BT effect to stay active. Ironically, it used to be ExDeaths. And then if you want a character who is better at building the FR gauge than others, then you can use Aphmau to do that. And I think that because she's had such a significant increase in her HP damage dumps, she's actually pretty darn good for current content if you use her correctly, so I really like her for that. And Sherlotta, I think, is a very worthwhile pull. Sherlotta is queen when it comes to charging the FR gauge. She's not the only character that can do it. There are tons of characters that can charge the force gauge quickly. But there's no one that could do it quite like Sherlotta can. The only thing I would say that Sherlotta was really missing was burst healing. She's got really good HP regens and stuff, but she doesn't have like bursty healing, and that's a bit sad. But her BT effect is fantastic. Like, having that Kate Sith-esque effect on a BT effect on a character that's already doing really well is delicious. She can do really good damage. if you actually build around what she's doing, and if you're using her, you probably are, you can use her skill 1 to charge the gauge quickly. Bear in mind that this is also going to store bravery for her chuck staff attack, which means that you can build that up over the course of time, so that when if you do decide to use her BT phase, you can just throw that staff over and over again and deal buttloads of damage doing it. And even when you're like using her during someone else's force time, you can use her crystal generation for 5 HP dumps that are AoE. I think she's fantastic. Her FR is good. It's only good. It's not incredible. It's no Cannonor. It's no Tidus. It's nothing like that. But I quite like having a character with a full support kit. I used to say the same sort of thing about Paladin Cecil back in the day, where people were like, oh, you don't need his BT. But I quite like having access to a character like Sherlotta who has an FR that she can build to herself, so that other characters are more malleable. I'm not then relying on a second character for the FR, and I can play around with team compositions a bit more. And Aphmau, ironically, has a great HP plus that you can use with Sherlotta for that kind of thing. There's loads of characters that you can experiment with for those kinds of things, and for that reason alone, I think Sherlotta is very worthwhile. Now, I do think that she's going to be an expensive investment, though. Like I said, her BT is where the meat of her value is. Like, it's a very powerful BT. So if you don't have the resources to perhaps go for a BT, maybe you might want to skip out on Sherlotta and save for Lunafreya instead, because she is more malleable with less. So perhaps you might want to consider doing that. And like I said, her FR isn't nearly as important to making her great as her BT is. So just consider that before you go all in on investments and stuff. ExDeath. I love ExDeath, but no, it's a big no, unfortunately. He might not be completely unplayable, but are you going to invest your books and your ingots into him when you could give them to somebody else, especially when we have such strong off-turn damage dealers already that actually scale with force time, as opposed to ExDeath? Are the benefits that he has, like his debuffs and his HP damage nullification and stuff like that, worth the bad HP dumps and the main mechanic that doesn't scale well with the era? No. Why use him when you could use a different character entirely, like your Canes, your Freyas, your Cisnes, etc, etc, etc? You just wouldn't. So that is all for today's video. Thank you ever so much for joining me today, and I hope that you've gained some insight from this video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on any future videos I might be making. And I will be here on Monday to tackle Dimensions End Transcendence 10. I am planning on doing Dare to Defy for all of the events as soon as the 7th event goes live, which I believe will be Cloud of Darkness's event. So we'll have that to do before the next community stream, but I want to kind of do it all together because I think it'd be a really nice way to explore it with all of you guys. So if you'd like to tune in for that, do come and find me on Twitch. And like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe and all of that good stuff. And I will see you next time, beautiful. Hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you soon. Take care.